In organizing the event, the Permanent Mission of the Union of Myanmar is fortunate that we have been able to invite Siaji U Goenka to make the keynote address. Today, he is the foremost lay teacher of Vipassana meditation in the tradition of the most venerable Ledi Sayadaw. He has conducted Vipassana courses in over 90 countries. Born and raised in Myanmar, Siaji U Goenka now belongs to the international Buddhist community. I wish to thank Siaji for his presence and for graciously accepting to be the keynote speaker today.
Siaji is a great worldwide known Vipassana meditation teacher in 21st century. He was born in Mandalay, Myanmar. There was a Burmese saying that people of Mandalay are good speakers. They are very good in speech. No question about it to Siaji. I met him as a businessman first time in 1964 in Yangon, Myanmar. That time I visited his office, business office, to beg the Hindi books, Hindi reading books. This is the first time for me to see him, saw him. And again, I met him as a meditation teacher in the year 2000 at the Religious Millennium Summit sponsored by the United Nations. In the year 2000 in New York. Fortunately, I met him twice in this month. Once in Sri Lanka Buddhist Vihara this month, and here now. We are happy to hear the interesting story of the Buddha and the unique teaching of Vipassana will be given by Siaji U Goenka in this holy event of Visa celebration today. Sangha and audience kindly request Siaji to deliver a speech. Thank you very much.
Most venerable Bhikkhu Sangha, and peace-loving friends, I am thankful to the United Nations and the organizers of today's meeting, the representative of the government of the Union of Myanmar, my birthland, and of the government of Sri Lanka, the island of Dhamma. I am so pleased to be with you all, to express my feelings of gratitude towards the Enlightened One and his teachings. His teachings are as relevant today as it was 26 centuries back when he rotated the wheel of Dhamma, the wheel of righteousness, the wheel of peace. I would say it is more relevant today. What a tragedy, what we are facing around the world. Such inhuman actions, full of terror, aversion, hatred, ill will, animosity, as a result of which people of fear, worry, feeling of insecurity. The enlightened one's teaching is most relevant in today's atmosphere to help people, to help the entire humanity to come out of the present misery. Why people take such cruel, inhuman actions? Man killing another man or group of men without even knowing personally who they are, without having any animosity with the person who is being killed, just because one does not belong to my religion, one does not accept our traditional belief, one does not belong to my country, one does not belong to my caste or my race. What is happening? Why all this? People have forgotten the essence of their own religion. The quintessence of every religion is the same. There is unity in diversity. The quintessence of every religion, what the name is, live a moral life with a disciplined mind, pure mind, full of love, compassion, goodwill, and tolerance. Every religion teaches this. But then there is diversity. This is the inner essence of every religion. But when the outer shell differs from one religion to another, the outer shell, where we have different rites, different rituals, different celebrations, ceremonies, different beliefs, different dogmas, let people be happy with their own rites, their rituals, their celebrations, their beliefs, their dogmas. Nothing wrong. So long as they give importance to the inner essence of the religion. If this essence is lost, then the difficulty starts. One gets strongly attached to one's own belief. Everyone must accept my belief, what I believe. My belief is real, is the truth. All others are wrong. This madness generates communal frenzies, aversion, hatred. Buddha gave importance to this inner essence. People used to come to him to discuss about this belief or that belief. Smilingly will say, just leave aside the field where we don't agree. Give importance to the questions where we agree. And then practice it. All the problems get solved. I was born in this Dhamma land, Burma, but born in a very staunch, conservative Hindu family. From the childhood, I was taught to have great respect for Buddha because he is taken as incarnation of the God Almighty, incarnation of Vishnu. But his teaching, no, not for us. You should not go for the teaching of Buddha. The mind was conditioned with this kind of teaching, this kind of lesson given to me from the childhood. Fortunately, at the age of 31, a situation arose due to which I had to take a 10-day course, Vipassana course, with my teacher, my Dhamma father, Syaji Ubakin, a very saintly person, full of love, full of compassion. When I met him and told him my difficulty, that I all respect and regard for Buddha, but his teaching, we have big differences in the belief that we have and the teaching that Buddha gave. He just smiled. He said, leave aside all other things. Tell me, in your Hindu religion, do you have any objection to Shila, that is morality? What objection, sir? This is accepted by everybody, by every religion. How can you observe Shila if you don't have control over your mind? We call it Samadhi. I will teach you Shila with Samadhi. Even Samadhi will purify your mind at the surface level. But then there are impurities, anusaya, kilesha, at the depth of the mind. The habit pattern of the root level of the mind, if this is not purified, again you are a miserable person. So I will teach you Panya. In Hindi or Sanskrit we say Pragya. And that will help you to eradicate all your impurities from the root level. Forget everything else. I will teach you only Shila, Samadhi, Panya, Shila, Samadhi, Panya. And this is what the enlightened one taught, nothing else. I thought, let me give it a try. And I decided to take a course of 10 days. It was so revealing. The first day when I went there, he gave me a small booklet. The first page contained the sermon of Buddha to the Kalamas, where he said, don't believe. Don't believe. Because many people are believing it. Don't believe because you have heard it so many times. Don't believe because your tradition believes it. Don't believe because the scripture says so. Don't believe even your teacher says so. That means even I say, don't believe. You experience yourself. And if you find it is good for you and good for everybody, then only believe, then only accept. And not only accept, live that life. It was a thrilling message to me. I came from the tradition where I was supposed to believe whatever the scripture says, whatever the Guru says, without any question, even though it looks very unreasonable, yet be able to accept it. And here somebody says, don't believe, in my words, experience yourself. I was more enthusiastic to give a trial to the teaching of Buddha. And I found it so good, so rational, so pragmatic, so scientific, and so result-oriented, and so non-sectarian. My teacher was not interested in converting me from one organized religion to another organized religion. Buddha's teaching is not an organized religion. It's a way of life. How to live. How to live peacefully and harmoniously within, and how to generate nothing but peace and harmony for the atmosphere outside, so that others can also live in peace and harmony. It's a way of life. an art of living. And yes, he taught nothing but Shila, Samadhi, Panya. And he said, every Buddha, everyone who becomes a Buddha, everyone becomes enlightened, teaches only Shila, Sabbha Papassa Karnan. Don't perform any evil action. Samadhi, Kusalasya Upasampada. Concentration of the mind, wholesome mind, one-pointed concentration of the wholesome mind. And say chitte pariyodhapanam. Purify the mind, purify the mind. Pariyodhapanam. There are many techniques. There were many techniques at the time of Buddha which tried to purify the mind at the surface level. Buddha was not interested in that. Pariyodhapanam. Not only Bodhapanam, Pariyodhapanam, Paripurna, the entire mental structure must be purified. And for that, he discovered a technique, a wonderful technique. And when I started practicing, it became so clear that Buddha was a super scientist of the spiritual world. He discovered certain things which were unknown to the world at that time. All these three, Shila, Samadhi, Panya, were taught by other teachers of other communities, but he had some special way of teaching. By discovering reality at the deepest level, making analytical study at the experiential level, analytical study of the mind-matter interaction, how mind keeps on influencing the body, and in return how body keeps on influencing the mind, and out of ignorance, avidya. One does not know what is happening deep inside. One keeps on working at the surface level of the mind, does not know that one is generating craving, aversion, out of moha, out of ignorance. That means generating misery for oneself. How to reach that stage, the depth of the mind. For that, he gave an object to concentrate the mind. Object of reality. No imagination allowed. No speculation allowed. No auto-suggestion allowed. No outer suggestion allowed. No imposition of this philosophy or that philosophy allowed. The truth as it is, pertaining to the mind and matter. Just accept it, nothing else. The first truth that manifests itself is the breath coming in, breath going out. Start observing it. Don't try to make it a breathing exercise. Don't try to regulate the breath. There's a different technique altogether we call pranayama. It has its own benefit. We are not going to condemn others. But this is a totally different technique that he gave. To develop the faculty of awareness of the truth as it is from moment to moment, from moment to moment. Keep your attention on a small area, nasikabge, after the nostril, and uttarothasya vimajjapadeshe, the upper lip, the central part of the upper lip. Keep your attention here and remain aware of the breath coming in, going out, coming in, going out. Mind wanders and you bring back again. The mind wanders, you bring it back again. It takes about 3 days. The mind starts coming down. And because you are working on a small area and with the truth, within 3 days, the mind becomes so sharp, so sensitive, it starts experiencing subtler realities pertaining to mind-matter phenomena. Every moment, there is some biochemical reaction going on in the entire body, some electromagnetic reaction going on throughout the body, every part of the body. And it manifests itself as this sensation or that sensation. On the third day, at the end of the third day, one starts experiencing sensations, physical sensations, on this part of the body. From the fourth day, one starts experiencing these sensations throughout the body, on every part of the body, every particle of the body, every atom of the body. This was a great contribution. People, teachers, at that time, we are teaching, don't get indulged in the sensual objects. When you come in contact with a shape or form, when it comes in contact with the eye sense door, a sound comes in contact with the ear sense door, a smell contact with your nose sense door, taste coming in contact with your tongue sense door, something tangible coming in contact with the body sense door, or some thought or emotion coming in contact with the mind sense door. Don't react. Don't react with craving or aversion. This teaching was there. What new Buddha gave? Very wonderful thing he gave. He says, no, you are not reacting to the sense objects from outside. When you come in contact with a sense object and you start reacting, there is a missing link that was discovered by the Buddha. Saraitan Pachaya Phassa. There is a contact. Sense door and the sense object. Phassa Pachaya Vedana. As soon as there is a contact, there is a physical sensation in the body, and you feel that, and then only you react. Vedana Pachaya Tanha. You don't react to outside object. It appears to be so. It seems to be so. This is only apparent truth. The real truth is you are reacting to the feeling of the body sensations. So you have to go to that depth and train your mind to feel all the sensations in the body and train the mind not to react. The teaching took us to there. Within 4 days one starts experiencing physical sensations throughout the body, and one learns the old habit pattern was to react. Whenever you feel very solidified, intensified, gross, unpleasant sensation, you react with aversion, with hatred. And when you come across very pleasant, subtle sensation, the old habit pattern is to react with craving, with clinging. And now Buddha says, no, just observe, just observe. Understand the characteristic. The characteristic of entire mind-matter phenomena, the characteristic of these sensations which are in contact with the mind and matter is impermanent. It doesn't stay forever. This is ephemeral. The gross sensation, unpleasant sensation, it arises, seems to stay for some time, but ultimately passes away. It is not eternal. And the most subtle, pleasant vibration also arising, passing, with great rapidity, with high velocity. The characteristic remains the same. What is the sense in reacting to something which is constantly changing? The entire physical structure, entire mental structure, all the time in a flux, all the time in a flow, not to be accepted because Buddha said so. It won't help. Not to be accepted because your intellect says so, your science says so. By experience, one starts experiencing and trains the mind not to react, not to react, just observe, just observe. The habit pattern of the mind starts changing at the depth of the mind. This is the root of the mind which is called anusaya kilesa. The old habit pattern of reacting, accumulated so much impurity deep inside, it has become the habit of the mind. On the surface level, if you purify the mind, good, it is good, don't say it's bad, but then time and again, a volcanic eruption will be there because of this anusaya kilesa, and again you are the same person. Again you are the same person. Oh, wonderful. Pure science of mind and matter. Another thing that he discovered, which people didn't know before that. We've gone through the scriptures, ancient scriptures of the Hindus, of the Jains, and the Buddha scriptures. And he says, Ubbe hanati attanam, pacha hanati sopare. First you harm yourself, then only you harm others. It was not clear. But with this experience it became so clear. When you start observing the truth within yourself, the nature starts revealing the truth. This is the law of nature. You can't harm anybody by taking an unwholesome vocal action or physical action without first generating some impurity or the other in your mind. You can't kill somebody without generating anger, hatred, ill will, animosity, and then only you kill. And as soon as you generate this negative emotion in your mind, you are the first victim of your negativity. If a personal meditator realizes this, look, I have generated negativity, and the entire physical structure has a burning sensation. Palpitation has increased. Tension has increased. I am suffering. What I am doing? I have started harming myself. I steal something not belonging to me. I have to generate greed. And the moment greed is the reason, you lose the balance of your mind. You lose the peace of your mind. You lose the harmony of your mind. You commit sexual misconduct. You can't do that without generating enormous passion, lust. And if you are a good Vipassana meditator, you realize you have lost the peace of your mind. Your mind has become so agitated. What you are doing? You started harming yourself. Nobody wants to harm oneself. And this is what you call avijja. Avijja does not mean that I have not read the scriptures, that I don't understand the scriptures at the intellectual level. One does not know what is happening within oneself. One does not know that one is harming oneself and harming others. Because of this ignorance, because one does not know what is happening deep inside, every moment there is this sensation or that sensation. Throughout the life, wherever there is life, there is bound to be a sensation, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. And at the depth of the mind, a reaction continues, craving, aversion, craving, aversion. You are making yourself miserable. This reality was found out by this great scientist of peace. So long as you have got impurity in your mind, you can't have peace. Your mind will always remain agitated. At the surface level, you may try to fool yourself, try to fool others. Deep inside, you are an agitated person. You are a miserable person. And to come out of that misery, you have to get rid of these impurities of the mind. And he gave a wonderful technique. Universal technique, which can be practiced by everybody and anybody. That is why in Vipassana courses, there is no religion in the world today, no religion in the world whose followers are not attending Vipassana course. Their leaders are attending Vipassana course. More than 2,000 Christian priests have attended Vipassana courses. Nuns have attended. Many Hindu sannyasis, Jain munis, and of course our bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, they have attended. It is so universal. What's sectarianism about it? Non-sectarian. When he wants you to observe the breath, what's sectarianism? You can't label the breath as a Hindu breath or Muslim breath or a Christian breath. Breath is breath, human breath. Every human being has the same breath. And when you come deeper to these sensations and the impurity in the mind, you generate anger, you got this burning sensation, what label you will get? Is it Hindu anger or Buddhist anger or Christian anger? Anger is anger. And the misery that you suffer is misery for everybody. And when you get rid of these negativities, mind becomes pure. And a pure mind by nature, law of nature, when the mind is pure, automatically is full of love. Pure love. No trace of passion or lust. Pure love, full of compassion. One-way traffic, you just give, you don't expect anything in return. Full of love, full of compassion, full of goodwill and tolerance. Acceptable to everybody. There is no religion which will not accept it. The trouble is when we forget the inner essence of the religion, which is morality, disciplined mind, pure mind, full of love, compassion, goodwill. When we forget them and we give importance only to the outer surface and get so much attached to this outer surface that all difficulties arise. When we start experiencing things inside, it is the same. People belonging to this religion or that religion, this tradition or that tradition, this belief or that belief. Law of nature is such. Law of nature is such that you will be punished as soon as you break the law of nature. Somebody may say, law of God, doesn't matter. And you will be rewarded when you start living in line with the law of nature. What law of nature? Law of nature is keep your mind pure, pure, full of love, full of compassion. This is what nature wants. And as soon as you have your mind pure, full of love, compassion, you start getting reward. So much of peace, so much of harmony. The nature started rewarding you. Or someone can say the God has started rewarding you. When you break the law, that means you break the purity of your mind and you generate any impurity. The nature starts punishing then and there. You become miserable. You generate any impurity, you are the first victim of your impurity. You may harm others later on, but you start harming yourself first. This law of nature, and you call Dhamma Niyamata. Wonderful. Like a scientist, he's talking in the science language. A Buddha or no Buddha, Dhamma Niyamata remains. It is always there. The law of nature is always there. Like Newton or no Newton, the law of gravity is there. The world keeps on rotating around the sun. Galileo or no Galileo. Somebody discovers the truth, we make use of it. Buddha discovered this wonderful truth. What you are doing, you are harming yourself. You are making yourself miserable. And you make others miserable. When I generate anger, hatred, negativity, I first start suffering. I don't keep this suffering limited to myself. I keep on throwing this misery on others. The entire atmosphere becomes so tense. Anyone who comes in contact with me at that time becomes a miserable person. One starts realizing, taking courses after courses of Vipassana, one starts realizing, what sort of life I have been living? Making myself miserable? Making others miserable? What I was doing? And now one learns the art of living. How to live peacefully and harmoniously within. And when you are living with peace and harmony within yourself, the entire atmosphere around you gets permeated with peace, harmony, peace, harmony. Anybody who comes in contact with this atmosphere feels so peaceful. This is Buddha's teaching. A science. And a super scientist who discovered all those things which were not known to any other religious teacher of those things, or before him, or even after him. If you miss that, to me it looks you missed everything. Each individual must learn how to live peacefully and harmoniously within, and then we can expect the human society to live in peace and harmony. After all, society is made of individuals, and every individual is all the time full of misery, all the time remaining full of agitation deep inside. How can we expect peace in the society? How can we expect peace in the human beings? And there is a way how to come out of this misery. Of course it takes time, you have to deal with the individual, but that is necessary. The entire forest had withered away. Entire forest is withered away, and we want it to become green again, blooming again. You have to take care of the root of every tree. If the root is decayed, you have to take care of that. You have to give water to every root of every tree. Then only the whole forest will become blooming and green again. This is a big problem for the human society today. more and more Vipassana spreads around the world without converting people from one organized religion to another organized religion. We are not interested in that. Buddha was interested in conversion, but conversion from misery to happiness, conversion from bondage to liberation, conversion from cruelty to compassion. That conversion is needed by everyone. When they belong to this community or that community, this religion or that religion, this country or that country, this race or that race, makes no difference. Every human being should get converted, not in Buddhism, but in the teaching of Buddha. I was so very much thrilled when I went through the words of Buddha, the entire Tipitaka and the commentaries and sub-commentaries, Atthakathas, Tika, Anutika, all we have put in a CD-ROM. 50,000 pages approximately, 50,000 pages. And the word Buddhism is missing. The word Buddhist is missing. We never taught Buddhism. We never taught Buddhist. When you say Buddhism, it is only for the Buddhist. It is bound to one community only. Buddha taught to everyone. He taught Dhamma. We find only this word Dhamma, 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 and Appamano Dhammo. When you say something sectarian, it is limited. It is a boundary. When you say Dhamma, no boundary. Appamano Dhammo, he taught Dhamma. And those who followed, he called them Dhammiku, Dhammatto, Dhammachari, Dhammavihari, Dhammanusari. These are the words available there. Buddha's teaching does not want people to get converted from one organized religion to another organized religion. Buddha's teaching wants people to get organized from misery to happiness, from ignorance to enlightenment. Enlightenment not just by these discourses, enlightenment not at the intellectual level, enlightenment at the actual level, at the experiential level. When you start experiencing the truth within yourself, you start changing yourself. Such large number of hard criminals. A challenge was given to me by a chief disciple of Mahatma Gandhi. He didn't believe. How can there be a technique to change the habit pattern of the people? Impossible. It is only the mercy. I said, sir, it has helped me. It is helping thousands of people. Then he gave me a challenge. If the hard criminals in the prison, if they get changed, then only I will accept the efficacy of this technique. Well, sir, arrange a course. He could not arrange after he passed away. Somebody arranged a course. And they gave very hard criminals. But a big change came. Not any magic, no miracle, nothing. They started observing themselves. All the time, what they are thinking now, even in the jail, they are thinking of revenge, taking revenge, anger, hatred. When I go out, I will kill that fellow who gave witness against me. I will kill that policeman. I will kill that judge. Oh, such kinds of negative thoughts. When they start observing, these thoughts generate so much of burning, so much of misery. What am I doing? I am harming myself. I am harming myself. Then the words of Buddha become so clear. Pubbe hanati attanam, pacha hanati sopare. First you harm yourself. First you kill your own peace and harmony, and then you can kill others, otherwise not. That becomes so clear. And very hard criminals are changed. Teaching of Buddha is such practical teaching. And that must have revived now, because I was attracted. If it was only a sermon, I would say, yes, sir, our Hindu religion also does the same thing. We also agree Shila, we also agree Samadhi, Panya. It would not have helped me, because I practiced. Then I found the difference. How Buddha takes us to the depth of our problem, and how he gives us a solution at the depth of the problem, at the deepest level of the mind, where the anusaya, the deep-rooted impurities, are being created, being multiplied, and we become slave of that habit pattern. Keep on harming ourselves, keep on harming others. Thousands and thousands of people from different communities, they come and they are so happy. I remember the first missionary who came there, one Mother Superior, very elderly nun. At the end of the course he says, Goenka, you are teaching Christianity in the name of Buddha. I am teaching spirituality. Buddha taught spirituality, which is for everyone. to live good life, peaceful life. Even Jesus taught the same thing. Have a pure heart, full of love, full of compassion. How to have a pure heart? Mere sermons won't help. I have the same thing in my Hindu religion. But how to get there? I was teaching Gita to the people, giving sermons on Gita. Sthit Pragya, get established in Panya, get established in Panya. And when you get established in Panya, is free from craving, free from aversion. But how to get established? How to get rid of this craving and aversion? There was no technique available. So mere understanding the truth at the intellectual level is good. It gives us inspiration. It gives a guidance. Sutamaya Panya, good. Chintamaya Panya, good. But ultimately Buddha wants Bhavanamaya Panya. You have to experience the truth yourself. When you touch burning fire, your hand burns. Once you have touched, 2 times you have touched, then you are afraid. No, this fire burns me. And when you start experiencing, look, this negativity and I am burning. Negativity burns me. How many times you will keep on experiencing it? You come out of it easily because you are experiencing misery. And you know you are responsible for the misery. There is no supernatural power who will make you miserable. You are responsible for your misery. You are responsible for coming out of misery. You are responsible to get peace and harmony, and you can get peace and harmony. Here is a way, a scientific way, a good way. No blind faith is involved. You experience and you will find, yes, it gives result. Result oriented. On this auspicious day, in this auspicious forum, the whole world may get the message. Buddha's teaching is for one and all. Everyone has misery, is suffering. And suffering because of one's own creation deep inside. And here is a way to come out of the misery. If you come out of the misery and start living a peaceful life, you can help so many others to come out of misery and live peaceful life. The entire human society will be a better society. Time has ripened now. When there is so much of darkness, light is needed. When there is so much of misery, peace is needed. Buddha's teaching is needed. Not to convert people to Buddhism, but to convert people to Dhamma. Live a proper life, a good life. Call yourself by any name. Buddha never changed the name of Moggalayan. Moggalayan was a Brahmin clan. He never changed the name of Katyayan, it was a Brahmin clan. Kashyap, Brahmin clan. He never changed. He never made them Bodhayan. But he made them Dhamma, practicing Dhamma. And they were brilliant stars practicing Dhamma. So many others got benefit. May all of you find time to practice the real teaching of Buddha for your good, for your benefit, and for the good and benefit of so many others. May you all be happy, be peaceful, be liberated. Chanda Vaze, Chanda Vaze, Chanda Vaze.